The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Cosmic Catastrophe on Revolution.radio. I'm your host, Diamond, from the Oppenheimer Ranch Project, and joining us today, as usual, is my lovely co-host and partner, Leah Shaper. You're muted.
Oops. Hello.
Oh, there we go. Oh, that hasn't happened in a while.
No.
I do hear a little echo.
Oh, dear. Maybe it's my speaker this time. Is that better?
Let me hear. I can still hear me.
I can still hear me too. Oh dear.
I'm going to turn this down a little. All right. Great show today. We're going to be talking about two very different topics. According to a new Harvard study, aliens may be living among us. That's quite interesting, and that will be the first half of the show. We'll go over the paper, and I can hear myself very loud on your end.
Oh, dear.
USC scientists proved that the inner core is backtracking, and something really going wrong there. Just turn your speakers way down. Way better.
That?
Yeah.
Okay, now I can barely hear, but...
You can turn it up a little.
Yeah.
All right, so are aliens living among us? What are your thoughts on the article?
Well, I think that it is very important to note that the authors noted this was a speculative thought piece, and they also note that they think that the likelihood of aliens living among us is rather low, although I don't entirely believe that they mean that statement. It may just be that they said that to kind of make it more digestible or approachable. I think one of the most important things about this paper is the acknowledgement of how much we really don't know about a lot of things, which is something that we complain about regularly on this show, that there's there's no acknowledgement of that. So for example, they talk about the limitations that we have in understanding our own biological, anthropological past. How many hominids have we uncovered versus how many there may actually be? Stuff like that, which I think is an important recognition. This general acknowledgement that there's a lot of stuff we don't know, and that's okay. But it has to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, the fact that most information that we've been given or we've learned in our lifetime is changing constantly.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting how the majority of the general public thinks like we know everything about gravity, which it couldn't be further from the truth. Right.
Well, and that also, the large volume of stuff we don't know is also an extremely important, obviously, which is why it's being brought up here, but it's an extremely important consideration when thinking about, what are the possibilities of other intelligent life, either living amongst us or extraterrestrial or extraterrestrially, or however you want to think about it. Because I think for some people, it's very easy to get excited about the possibilities for intelligent life without a lot of real evidence, or people will very quickly jump to conspiracy theories because some information has been hidden from us or some things are suspect. But like as one person who was quoted in this paper says, it's like trying to reconstruct a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle using only 50 pieces.
Yeah,
which I think is really, Right, which is really, really apt, right? But like you have to retain the less information that you have, the more skeptical you have to be. And being skeptical does not mean that you don't have to entertain possibilities, which is essentially what they're doing in this paper. It's funny to me, right? Because the media article about this paper, when I initially read it, I kind of like laughed the whole thing off, and I thought, oh, Harvard scientists wrote a paper entertaining, aliens living among us. Like, this sounds really silly. But then when I read this paper, it's like, no, it's actually a pretty good thought piece. And they fully acknowledge all of the things that we don't know, all of the things that are speculation, and also including lots of questions that we have based on various kinds of evidence that's surfaced about things that we don't understand. And this includes a topic that we discuss a lot, like the potential for a lost global civilization. So I actually think it's a pretty fair treatment of just kind of exploring the possibilities, and exploring where our knowledge system can actually take us, and how much the limited evidence that we have now, how far that can actually take us, which is not really that far.
Yeah, that's true. And using statements like lost civilizations and just repeating those words that have been repeated for decades, when we've discovered Göbekli Tepe and other sites where
Right.
the civilization is.
Right. Well, it's only
So it's not lost anymore.
Right. I mean, it's only lost still in the sense that we don't have a full comprehensive picture of what that civilization was like and what it means in the context of human history.
Right. Well, also the fact that most people aren't that smart. So if they're holding on to that ideal of a lost civilization and you find Göbekli Tepe, all those people do is say, oh, well, the lost civilization must have given them that technology. They keep pushing this lost civilization back in time to some place where they aren't existing, when we are simply doing the archaeological work and actually finding them further and further back.
Right. Right.
It's really weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
And no different here on this particular topic. The media got some sparse information and they ran with it. They put Harvard in the headline and aliens, when if you really were doing a just piece on the paper, on the cryptoterrestrial hypothesis,
Mm-hmm.
you would have noted the fact that Harvard doesn't want their name associated with this.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who did the paper happens to be in a group. Where do I have it? I had it up here, the note. Oh, it's right here. Here's the note. The note is right after the title, before the authors in the actual paper. And it says, this paper is a speculative thought piece that reflects the author's own interests and ideas and is not associated with Human Flourishing Program at Harvard.
They do say that.
They disassociate themselves from the program because this guy works in it.
Right. They do say that in the media article, that it's not associated with the human. They note this note at the top of the paper in the media article.
Yeah, but they don't put it anywhere near the title because they want you to click on it.
Right. Right.
If they said in the title that this hypothesis in all likelihood is false, no one would click on it because they want to believe in aliens.
Right. Right. Right.
And the note does go on to say, nevertheless, it does still merit investigation, which I believe, because the moment you claim that you know everything, that's when you've gone completely off.
Absolutely. Right. Like there will never be a point ever where human beings know everything. That will never happen.
And the other reason that they wrote this paper is because of this renewed interest in UFOs, because they've renamed it UAPs, and all these top secret whistleblowers from the government coming out and claiming that we've got alien parts and this, that, and the third.
Yeah.
I believe all of that is part of a bigger picture that's been going on for 100 years, a disinformation package, which is coming down from the highest levels.
Mm-hmm.
The CIA was created for propaganda and disinformation to be used as a political tool. And more people in the world are opening their eyes to what's happening.
Right. Which only makes this particular topic all the more confusing, because you can definitively argue that there's mysterious happenings out there in the world that deserve some investigation. But then when it's mixed in with the disinformation campaign, it becomes very difficult to tease those things apart.
Exactly.
Especially because there's a general lack of disclosure. By the way, before I forget to mention it, do you find it strange that there's no mention of Bob Lazar in this paper? Not that I found anyway.
Right. Just like no one would ever cite Alex Jones either.
You
Even
think they're on
though
the same
half of the
level?
things Alex Jones has said are true, he's
Right.
toxic. So you just avoid those types of people.
But I mean, and maybe I don't know what their reputations are, and maybe that's the issue here. I mean, there's other sort of high up people that are mentioned in this paper, as having either witnessed or been privy to discussions about, mysterious happenings that are mentioned in here. I guess
Yeah,
maybe
well,
they
Bob
just
Lazar
don't.
was debunked. Didn't you know that?
No, I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, that's the official narrative. He's a
Okay,
liar.
great. Fair enough.
I think he's one of the most genuine and honest people I've ever heard speak.
Right.
But that's for a
Right.
different podcast.
Right.
So the abstract here says, in recent years, we've seen an increasing public attention and indeed concern regarding unidentified anomalous phenomenon, UAPs. If we were reading this 20 years ago, it would say UFOs. Now, hypotheses for such phenomenon tend to fall into two classes. Conventional terrestrial explanation, that means it's some type of human-made technology that's top secret, their shadow government is making, and they don't want us to know about, or an extraterrestrial explanation. That means an advanced civilization from elsewhere in the cosmos. I don't know why they didn't put there or living here on Earth.
Well, I mean, they certainly do talk about that quite a lot
because they say here the third minority class hypothesis is an unconventional terrestrial explanation outside the prevailing consensus view of the universe. This is the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis, which includes a subset of the cryptoterrestrial hypothesis, namely the notion that UAPs may reflect activities of intelligent beings concealed in stealth right before our very eyes here on Earth. Mm-hmm. They may be hiding underground or even near Earth. They're considering the moon. Or even, this is crazy, walking among us with, I guess, some kind of cloak or skin suit.
So I got to share that as I read this, I kept getting these flash images and I had to look it up to remember exactly what occurred. There's a Simpsons episode from 1996. It's quite famous, and a lot of people probably remember it. It was right before the election between Bill Clinton and Bob Dole. And in the episode, the aliens, I forget their names, they begin with K's. There's these two big slobbery, slimy green aliens that come and take over their bodies. And they're basically wearing skin suits of Bill Clinton and Bob Dole. And they become these monotone, candidates, monotone speaking candidates. It's freaking hilarious, right? And eventually everybody discovers that they're really aliens. And somebody says, well, I don't want to vote for aliens. I'm going to vote for a third party. And the aliens are like, go right ahead, throw your vote away. It's very funny. I couldn't stop thinking about these skin suit, aliens wearing skin suits of humans,
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Oh, and especially considering that The Simpsons has been somewhat predictive in some respects.
Exactly. It must be true.
It's even funnier to think about.
All right, let's critically think here and talk about the UAP issue. The UAP issue is now called UAPs because Freedom of Information Act, whistleblowers, and others have found out that the government had secret studies, reports, and other breakout groups that were using this terminology as well as UFO. So what happened in the last few decades is we found out that there were groups in the military, top secret groups that have been studying this for years. And like most top secret things, the public was unaware of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, also,
go ahead.
on UAP, the term UAP, right, which used to be unidentified aerial phenomena, is now unidentified anomalous phenomena, and it's because supposedly there's been some underwater anomalous phenomena as well as aerial.
Yeah, some of these UAPs, which move in a way that is not consistent with anything that we have created on Earth, have been filmed moving at relativistic speeds in space, showing that they can speed up and slow down from like 100 to 1,000 miles an hour instantly. There's no evidence of any discharge from these objects, meaning there's no exhaust or anything like that happening. It appears as if they can move through barriers like the sound barrier without creating a sonic boom in some cases.
Mhm.
That's questionable. And many of them have been witnessed traveling directly into bodies of water where they don't create a splash. They just transition from air to water, and then they continue to move at the same speeds subsurface.
Yeah.
So these are all highly questionable things that have been witnessed and documented, and there are no explanations for it.
There's even a mention in here of an incident, and I don't recall exactly what it is. I was just looking for it, of I think it's a military, some kind of military aquatic vessel that's like being followed by some unidentified object that is moving at speeds, like basically relativistic speeds, and they can't explain it.
Yep, unexplainable. So let's think about what the explanations could be. Clearly, it could be some advanced technology we don't know about. Now, what other option other than it being an advanced technology we don't know about? What other explanation is there? There really isn't. So it has to be a technology we don't know about.
Right.
That's simple.
Right.
It's the only answer. These UAPs, whatever they are technology we don't know about. Now, they could be made by humans. And it's the most logical because we know there's billions of humans on Earth. They do crazy things. We've made quantum computers and other amazing things. And just 20 years ago, we had none of that.
Right.
Not a cell phone. We were using rotary phones 25 years ago, for goodness sakes. And now we can beam messages instantaneously to the other side of the Earth in a millisecond.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the type of technological advances we're talking about in short periods of time. And if governments are hiding higher technologies, where in the world could they be at this time? It is often posited that the US government and their dark operations are 20 to 30 years advanced than what we actually have in the public sector.
Mm-hmm.
If that's true, think about what I just said. 30 years ago, we were using rotary phones. Now we can beam a message, a video call to the other side of the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
If the government is 30 years advanced of that, what are they doing?
Right.
Is the MH374 orbs not a hoax and we can beam aircraft out of the sky through a wormhole? Like, what is going on?
You know, the portal exhibit that was set up, you know, there's like the portal in London and the portal in New York.
Yep.
And it's funny, it's very funny to me how fascinated people are with that exhibit, because it's really no different than just like having a FaceTime conversation with somebody.
On a cell phone.
It's something that we do every day now. You know, it's what we're doing right now. We're having a conversation on video. We're looking at each other, and it's really no different. But I think that maybe people are so fascinated with it because it kind of resembles it's a technology that we didn't have 25 years ago. It probably resembles some higher, because it appears as if you really are looking through some portal the way it's set up. But it's funny because it's quite possible that our government actually does have such a technology today.
Yes.
Based on like a lot of things. Meaning like a real portal.
Right. The MH370 and the work of Ashton Forbes
Right.
could be uncovering that.
Right.
And the fact that what I just said about the advancements we know about as humans living on Earth, the fact that the government could be 20 to 30 years more advanced than we currently know about means that the government may be able to travel faster than the speed of light, teleport people. I mean, things that are unimaginable. So creating a spacecraft that has no drag that can move really fast, that seems like something we're going to have in 10 years.
Right. Right.
So the government probably already has that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what better way what they've been doing with this disinformation for 100 years is to support the disinformation. You encourage whistleblowers that are simply out there to make shit up, to get fame, to lie, and you support them.
Mm-hmm.
You don't kill them because you want them to sound stupid and make stuff up and pour that disinformation into the public. When all the while at Area 51, you've got a hangar full of these UAPs and you've been testing them for decades.
Right. I mean, in a sense, it's kind of like what I was saying earlier. It's the most effective kind of disinformation campaign because there's clearly stuff that the public is not aware of, and we don't know where it's coming from. We don't know if it's coming from our government, if it's actually coming from a different intelligent life, a form. And so by creating all of that confusion, you just obfuscate the whole thing.
Yeah. Now, what's
and then
also
meanwhile, it's this issue, and this is brought up in this paper later, is not that much different than other things that you and I talk about all the time in terms of technology from ancient civilizations that, where we don't know how they did certain kinds of things, where they were clearly capable of creating things, and we don't know how to do that today.
Yeah, there's almost no way we could recreate the South American megalithic blocks. The polygonal blocks in, let's say, Sacsayhuaman or any of those regions that are interlocked in such a way that many Masons say that it would be impossible to do it by hand. There's no way to do it.
Well, we have one hypothesis about how it could be done that we could do today, which would be using geopolymers.
Yeah, but I don't buy that because the majority of these rocks have been identified by geologists as coming from a particular location based on their mineralogy. Now, according to the geopolymer people they say, well, they harvested the rocks at that site, crushed them up, and that's why it has the same mineralogy. Yeah. I don't buy that for a second.
Darn, I wish I could remember now. There's a really interesting paper that I read that was talking about the kind of analyzing the internal structure of those rocks and determining whether or not they could be natural or not or whatever. And I don't remember the details or the conclusion now, but it was pretty interesting, a pretty interesting analysis.
All right. We'll talk about that on a different show. Definitely.
Yeah. I got to find that.
Because we know the source for megalithic, let's say Aswan granite in Egypt. We know where the quarry is. We know exactly where these rocks were taken from 150 miles away to this place. And there's still no way that today we could move a 120-ton pillar without breaking it 120 miles. We could probably do it. We would build this truck with 1,000 wheels on it, that was a mile long, and we'd have to take down all the power lines. It could be done, but it's just impossible to think how it could be done 5,000 years ago.
Right. Well, and then there's other issues like, some of the, let's say, circular sort of tunnel cuts in Egypt that, the only way we know how to do this today is using diamond blades.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And so it then invites all of these other questions about, okay, if they had such a technology, where is the evidence for that? Is it just too long ago and, that stuff has disappeared? Were they taken with people when they left? Was it some other intelligent life force that told them how to do this? It just raises all of these other questions. And again, brings us back to this issue of there's just so much that we don't know. And all we're left with really is speculation and, hypotheses, some of which are better than others, but we just don't know what we don't know. It's like my favorite mantra in the whole world is the more that I know, the less that I know anything at all. Because the more questions you ask and the more deeply you investigate, the more questions that are raised, always. This is kind of one of the beautiful things about being alive, right? There's no reason to be bored. That's for sure.
No, and I always like to go back to Occam's razor on the alien UAP thought process. The most logical explanation is humans are doing these things. Humans are abducting people on Earth. And which humans would abduct people? Governments, evil governments that are doing evil things.
Right.
The same evil governments hiding this technology from us. Because if what we're unraveling before our very lives amongst the community here is the fact that free energy has existed forever and it's been suppressed. And we have high technology. That means that human suffering is on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
All of it.
Yeah.
And there's a few very high up people that know about this and they don't care.
Yeah, I think if for anyone that's still living with the idea that, there isn't malevolence on the part of the government, you're sleepwalking, It's just a really unfortunate part of our reality.
They've done a good job at hiding how evil they are, but they've been experimenting, poisoning people forever. Multinational corporations do the same thing every day.
Yeah.
The food in the supermarket is filled with toxins and poisons that are illegal and banned all through Europe, but not here. And it's because you need to follow the money.
Yeah. Well, it's like the episode that we did about the PFAS chemicals, right? And you read this exposition piece that's written, and one of the things that becomes incredibly apparent is that 90+% of the people involved at these corporations really are evil. They don't have a moral compass. They laugh about the fact that they've misled other researchers or sent them on a hunt for something that they already knew, and they do not care that these things poison people. They just don't.
Wasn't it 3M?
Their primary interest is in themselves, their jobs, and their jobs. That's it.
Was it 3M or that got
3M.
the patent for PFAS and that was told not to put this into waterways and immediately dumped it into waterways?
I think that 3M, so 3M is responsible for the initial development of the chemicals.
Yeah.
And then when they passed it on, I believe, to DuPont, they specifically told DuPont, do not put this in the waterways, and DuPont went ahead and did it anyway.
Not only
I don't
that,
understand.
DuPont's workers were directly handling PFAS and cleaning it off without any protection.
Yeah.
And they knew it was harmful.
Yeah. They absolutely
knew that all the lab animals that were exposed to it died.
Yeah.
Died of cancer or liver shut down or their teeth turned black. They knew that. And when the people of the town's teeth started turning black and their employees, they denied it had anything to do with their plant.
Yeah. Well, and I forget, is her name Chris Hansen, the researcher that sort of was looking into all this? Her boss, who sent her on this essentially wild goose chase in the first place, because he already knew that the chemical was a problem. And I don't remember now if he knew that it was spreading globally. But he clearly indicates, he laughs about the fact that he essentially kind of destroyed her personal life and her career. And his interest is in preserving the company, and that's it. How do you, we're getting really off topic now, but how do you live with yourself as a human being with your commitments being to this evil company and maintaining your job? I just I can't even comprehend that, because I'm not that person.
Into thinking that they're doing great things for the planet, creating all these new technologies to
I
make
don't think
life
he thinks
easier.
that at all. If you read the dialogue with him, I don't think he thinks that at all. I think he's just completely and purely selfish, and his life is completely bound up in his job at 3M, or was anyway.
Yeah, so evil exists.
Yeah.
Trust me. Here is a list of 14 aliens that the CIA has on file. This is the 14 alien types that the CIA recognizes, and this is a legitimate document. Now, there are other sources that have other documented aliens, and there are far greater than 14. The CIA only has 14 known aliens.
What is going on with number 3?
And I guess they only saw the hand, which has 4 fingers on each side, and the face. So that's what you're seeing there. But I mean, they all look pretty similar, the top ones.
Yeah, they're missing the cone heads.
Oh, there are many sources of aliens. I left out all of the Athenians. Here are the Athenians, which look a lot like Predator.
I was about to say that looks like something out of the Alien movie.
And this, what is this? What
That
the
looks
heck
like
is
an
this?
onion head.
Yeah, another Predator with the tentacle hair. And
See,
there's even an alien timeline. Now, this should open up your eyes to what's going on here. 1947 is Little Green Men, and all the aliens come after that. This is a mass psychosis. That's all it is. That's not based on reality or anything actually going on. This is mentally ill people or people that are suffering some type of a seizure, an event, people being duped by the government or drugged. And then this is what you get: a fairy tale narrative of fake aliens that probably don't exist.
The biggest tip off to me in terms of this kind of stuff has always been, and it's not entirely true here, but that the vast majority of depictions of aliens always have like a kind of a humanoid kind of form.
Yeah,
and I'm like, why in the world? Like, if we're talking about the infinite possibilities of the universe, which is essentially what you have to do if you want to talk about the possibilities of other intelligent life, intelligent life, then why would you assume that the form would be so similar to us?
It wouldn't be, because we've discussed the fact that the octopus might be smarter than us. And
yeah, right.
But we don't speak octopus. We don't live underwater, so we don't communicate with them well. We were talking about this yesterday. Like dogs and horses may be more intelligent than us. We know trees have been around for 400 million years, and they've been communicating through the soil. Clearly, they are smarter than humans. But no one is willing to believe that.
Right.
Humans, in fact, are dumb. Look at this timeline for aliens. All of them look like people with legs and arms.
Most of them. I mean, there's a few that don't, but
yeah, we got this blob here in 1958,
What's
but that
there,
is
like-
a movie called The Blob.
why is there a little spot in 1977 for robots? Like,
Yeah, the robots, because that was when the robot aliens came out in 77.
and why does the reptilian look like the Michelin Man in turquoise
See, oh yeah,
with a cat head?
with the cat head,
I mean, this is just like embarrassing.
reptilian.
Where does this come from? It's
Joe
just-
Nickel's Alien Timeline. You never saw that?
No.
You die. The point is that most aliens are depicted like this.
Yeah. Right. Again, why a humanoid?
Exactly.
And why
So the
are they
most
all
like-
so similar looking? I mean, that's another thing. It's like, I mean, I suppose they're similar looking because these are the kinds of forms that people have claimed to have witnessed when they've been abducted or whatever.
Exactly. And so the easiest way to fake being an alien as a human is to put a costume on, which means you have to maintain the human stature. You could use
Right.
some kids and get small aliens. You could
Yep.
use some tall people and get big aliens.
Well,
But you always got to maintain that human form.
Well, and additionally, if you use a similar looking costume for the majority of abduction events, then you help create a narrative that enforces the idea that these creatures actually exist. And by no means am I saying that there isn't intelligent life in the universe. I mean, what I believe is the universe is infinite, so the possibilities are basically definitive that there must be some other form of intelligent life. I mean, and there's no, well, maybe not must be, but there's no reason to think that it can't happen, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
But-
we've gotten all this technology in 200 years.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
We were all farmers with pencils 200 years ago.
Right.
And
then
ink
if you,
pens. There's not
Right.
a single piece of technology.
right. And you just alluded to this earlier, but as you and I were discussing yesterday, there's so much that we don't even understand about the intelligence of animals, right? We were talking about a video where there's an elk who is literally pushing a soccer ball back and forth with two little boys, right? There's something else going on there. There's this interactive thing with animals that indicates intelligence and initiative that we don't entirely understand. And so if that's true for the animals on Earth, then why should it not be that there's some other creature that has had the ability to communicate in a similar manner in which we do and create technology?
Yeah, they just found out that elephants call each
Right.
other by name.
Which is fascinating.
That is the tip of the iceberg. It's the beginning of the understanding that we don't understand anything.
Right. Yeah.
People have been trying to decipher what dolphins are saying for years.
Yeah.
Because they're extremely intelligent.
Yeah.
Who's to say they're not smarter than us?
Yeah.
Just because they can't pollute the earth and make a cell phone? Come on. If that is how you measure superiority, destroying a planet and making piles of junk, that's just stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Almost as stupid as the Green New Deal and all these things they purport to be good for the planet.
Mm-hmm.
None of them are good.
Mm-hmm.
And take a look at this alien on the screen. It's a mask. You can see the guy's face in there.
Mm-hmm.
It's all fake. Almost everything we know is fake. That's for a reason. They don't want you to know what's going on. They want you to be compliant. They want you to go to your job, pay your taxes, be exhausted, and not look into it.
Yeah. I have to mention that it's so interesting to me that in this paper, there are so many things that we have discussed before mentioned in this paper. Things like Göbekli Tepe is mentioned in here. Other monumental sites that we don't entirely understand. I don't know if you caught it, but it also mentions even the Dulce Mesa here, right near us, as a potential base, military base, where the military's been interacting with non-human intelligence forms.
And see, that would be what the military wants the public to think.
Mm-hmm.
And so all these go back to military bases, top secret military bases. All the so-called aliens go back to top secret military bases where this advanced technology is being developed by humans.
Yeah.
No need for aliens. You add the aliens so that you take the ability of humans to be very technologically advanced away.
Yeah. Oh, even mentioned is the, and we talked about this paper a couple of months ago, the wooden structure that was found in Zambia that's like almost 500,000 years old. That's clearly two interlocking pieces of wood.
Yeah.
You know, partially mentioned as an indication of, again, there's so much that we don't know.
Yeah.
You know, we know
400,000-year-old log home.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's funny, right? Okay, so like, okay, so for those of you that don't know, in Pagosa Springs, there's kind of a thing about, supposedly UFO sightings, etc. And that is all related to the Dulce Mesa that I just mentioned, which it could very well be that this is just a site where our government is messing around with technology that we are unaware of. And it's funny because never in my life have I ever seen a UFO, but I actually did see one right here on our road a couple of years ago. And I'm calling it a UFO because I don't know what it was. It might not be an unidentified flying object, but it was certainly a flying object that I have never seen before and I can't explain. And it was basically like a metal just sphere moving along above the mesa. I was driving and I was driving over the ranch, and there it was, like right over the ridge. And it wasn't that far away. It wasn't that big either. I want to say it was like, I don't know, maybe half the size of a car. And I was like, what the heck is this object? And I was trying to just get to the driveway at the ranch so I could stop and take a picture. But by the time that happened, it had gone over the other side of the mesa. And I was like,
Rex and
what?
Kristen saw that in the Valle Seco 2 years ago.
I have no idea what that is.
They saw the same sphere in the Valle Seco.
Yeah.
On their way to Dulce. Which
is not, it's not far from where I saw it.
No, it's like 5 miles, 8 miles, whatever.
Right. Like, no idea what that is. So I certainly don't leave out the possibility that we have some experimentation going on over here. Which could explain why there's lots and lots of people here who say that they've seen unidentified flying objects.
Probably not made by the Athenians, though.
Probably not. Who are the Athenians supposed to be?
There they are. There's 5 different kinds.
All with humanoid forms again. Like even the rib cages are like drawn like humans.
Oh yeah.
Like why is that detail even in there? Or like the figure in the middle where you can see the spine through the body? Like I it's the details.
This guy Onion Head's got abs.
Yeah. The details that are included in these images are seemingly kind of random. Also like there don't really seem to be genitalia. Like if you're going to draw these humanoid forms, that why would you not include that?
We don't need genitalia in the future. we make babies by holding hands.
What's with the guy?
All right,
with the
eat
legs
that
here?
alien with a dead horse, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so.
So I think my position is that the world governments have high technology. The only alien connection that I'm willing to accept is the Bob Lazar account, where we may have uncovered advanced technology from an alien species that visited Earth and got stuck here.
Mm-hmm.
And that could have been millions of years ago. And it's something we found and we have now hidden, and we're basing all the technology on what we found.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's not recent, and aliens aren't visiting us, but this whole idea is being used as a diversion to keep people from looking into these secret government facilities like Area 51.
Mm-hmm.
It's already the most secure place ever. When you get within 7 miles, you're being tracked, from space. No one
And your cell phone signal is usually blocked over there as well.
Yeah, it's something's going on there that's pretty important.
Well, and I mean, I slightly disagree with you in the sense that I don't think that you can completely discount the idea that there is some intelligent life form that we've encountered. I mean, obviously, like the Bob Lazar stuff would sort of point to that, although we may not have actually had the encounter ourselves. As you said, it might have been a long, long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the disinformation and the confusion that has been created, it is impossible to know one way or the other. And I will say this again, like the percentage of what we know, or even what, let's say, governments know, is so tiny in comparison to, because the recording stopped for some reason.
I hung up accidentally.
Oh dear. Okay, well, I've restarted the recording, so we're good.
I think hopefully we'll get the whole thing.
Yeah, we will, because I only, it was like 2 seconds after it went out, so.
Yeah, I accidentally hung up. Oops. So I'm back now. So let's change the topic. But before we do, let's go back one more time. I think that if there are advanced civilizations, they're going to be thousands of years more advanced than us, tens of thousands, let's say. They're not going to be running around the universe meddling with other cultures. It's just my opinion. There's going to be no need for that. They can manipulate and create anything that they want at any given moment. They're not going to be doing experiments. They're going to know where all the biological entities in the universe are from their position, where they are, because they're that advanced. So when you, and this all comes from the book, The Type 5 from, what's his name? D'Amico. The Type 5 explains that when you advance to another level, the next level up, you know everything there is to know. So there's no need to be driving around the universe. You already know it's everywhere. Mm-hmm. You know how to harness the power of entire galaxies. So these aliens are not going to be going around Earth abducting people. That's just ludicrous. Who would be abducting people and doing experiments? Governments, because they've been doing it forever. Yeah. And that's my final word. Do you think that that's a logical point to have?
I mean, I don't think there's any way to know that some other intelligent life form species is at that next level. I just don't think that there's any way to know that. I mean, there could easily be other life forms that are less intelligent than us, alien life forms that are less intelligent than us, and others that are more intelligent than us. And like I said earlier, I don't think there's a point ever where we know everything. I think
Yeah.
we're always heading towards that, right? That's what we're always shooting for. But the more questions we ask, the more there is to know. And I think that that is the nature of the universe. Then that the universe is not just infinite in time and space, but that it is also infinite in its ability to express in different ways, in the amount of information it has. I think that that is all endless. And so by that very definition, there's no way to know everything. And I don't know, it's like considering the way that we do experiment on other life forms, on animals, um, it's possible that another life form would want to experiment on us.
Only if they were at the same intelligence level as we are now. That's the only time that happens.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And I believe in a very short distance in the future, we're going to know everything. They're claiming in 1 to 4 years, computers will know everything to know. It's called the singularity. We discussed it. It's hard to understand because humans are dumb. They are. You and I, let's say 40 years ago, didn't know how to do calculus at all. And if someone showed us a calculus book when we were 10, we'd be like, what is that?
Mm-hmm.
And so the learning curve for humans is minuscule. And in our short 100-year lifetime, or 80 or 60 or whatever it is, where we only spend, let's say, 20 of those years actually learning in some capacity, a lot of people become complacent. They think that when they graduate high school, that's all they need to know and read the newspaper. It's like,
Right.
you don't know anything.
But think
So
about
for us to think that a computer could know everything, that doesn't make any sense. It's hard to fathom that.
Yeah, but think about the Yuga cycle, right? Like we've talked about this idea, this 26,000 year cycle where we go through phases of humanity where we're relatively dumb,
Yeah.
both like morally and intellectually and spiritually. And then we eventually reach some point that is kind of like an enlightenment or even a singularity, as you're talking about. But that is not until the golden age, right? And like, assuming that that cycle is accurate and true, I happen to believe that it is. I can't prove that by any stretch of the imagination. That would suggest that there is quite a lot more to learn than we could ever achieve in, let's say, the next 10 years.
Yeah, and I think that maybe we're stuck in a solar system that doesn't allow us to get much higher than the highest level we reach each cycle. It doesn't allow us to get an exponential step up where we can become a type 2 or type 3 civilization, because we are stuck in a cosmic catastrophe solar system that only gives us 24 to 26,000 years each go around to get smart enough to get where we get. And then it gets shut back down and reset, and we got to do it all over again. But each iteration is different. The technology that we create in each iteration is different, but similar in that the fact that we gain knowledge for a certain period of time and then it's all thrown away.
Well, and I've said this before, but I think that might be for a reason, right? Like that we hit that, let's say that 26,000 year mark, we reach sort of the peak of our enlightenment, and then the natural catastrophe cycle happens, shuts all of that down, and then we sort of have to start over, or at least we start falling down the scale again. And the way that I think about that is like, I think that our purpose in being here, in incarnating, is to try to strive for enlightenment. And in order to keep doing that, we have to forget everything and to learn it all over again. Also, partially because, like you just said, the technologies will be all completely different in the next cycle. And so it's now like a different kind of expression of a similar thing that we're learning all over again.
Yeah, it's Groundhog Day, the movie. It just keeps going forever and ever and ever.
If we could get a really wide perspective on this and kind of like look at all of the 26,000 year cycles that we've been through and digest and understand all of those together, we might actually know something. But that's probably not going to happen.
And if they didn't keep burning all the books, my goodness.
Yeah.
All right, we've got just a few minutes here to cover this next topic, which really should take a lot more time.
Yeah.
I believe it was about a year ago, the first paper that came out claiming that the inner core may have reversed direction. This is incorrect. It is still moving in the same direction as the mantle. There is a decoupling. They are not coupled, because of the outer core, which appears to be liquid in state. The inner core and the mantle are not connected in any way because there's a liquid zone between the two. But because of inertia and the entire planetary system, they generally move at the same speed, give or take a few milliseconds. Sometimes the inner core is a few milliseconds faster, and sometimes it slows down to retrograde.
Right. It's exactly the
what they
same as
should have said a
retrograde
year ago.
motion that you see in the sky.
What'd you say?
It's exactly the same as retrograde motion that you would see with the stars in the sky. Something appears to be moving backwards, but it's not. It's just slowed in relation to the other thing that's moving in the same direction.
Yeah. And so some people are fear-mongering about this. You could probably guess who that is. But this has almost no effect on anything known. No effect on geologic processes like volcanism or earthquakes. None. It's just a cause and effect of the way our planetary system operates. And they've known that the Earth speeds up for a period of decades and then slows down. And we even covered that superstorms from the sun, the plasma, the plasma cloud that comes towards us during these superstorms is so dense. When it hits our magnetosphere, some of it hits the Earth and it slows our rotation because it's so dense.
Yeah.
So because the inner core has now gone retrograde and is moving slightly slower than the mantle, because of this superstorm, we've just slowed the Earth. And it's could be the same now, which is why I don't think this paper is significant in any way other than clarifying that there's a relationship that goes on between the mantle and the core, and it goes back and forth. It's almost like a pendulum, like a swinging pendulum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as they, rightly point, I think you're right that the paper doesn't really have implications that are more than that. But as they point out that potentially they've sort of created a model for evaluating the motion of, the inner core versus the outer core versus the mantle to maybe help us understand this a little bit better. And when you think too about this idea of, plasma coming to Earth and affecting our rotation, you can sort of imagine how it might affect, let's say, the core differently from the outer core.
Right. If it's slowing the mantle, the crust, the plasma sheath, if it's rapidly slowing it, the core doesn't slow down. It keeps going. So it changes the dynamic there.
Yeah.
It puts the brakes on the crust and the core keeps going fast. So then the core is moving faster than the crust at that point.
And just by virtue of the idea that the core is a different structure and material than other parts of inner Earth, like obviously that plasma is going to affect those things differently.
Right. And the way they can see this all is from seismic waves. So you got P and S waves. Some of these waves bounce off the outer core mantle boundary and come back to the surface. And some of them go through the liquid outer core all the way to the core and bounce off that. And by using these two types of waves, they can determine the speed of both units.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty simple what they're doing there.
Yeah.
But they don't really talk about the length of day fluctuating. And I don't know why.
Yeah.
Because it's another variable they need to add.
Well, it's the natural outgrowth of these changes in rotational speed.
So you can see here in 2019, the Earth was spinning at more than 24 hours a day, 0.39 milliseconds extra per day. That means the Earth is going faster or slower? Slower. So in order
I didn't realize you were asking a question.
Yes.
Yeah.
In order to get longer than a 24-hour day, the Earth has to slow down. In order to speed up, you've got to be going faster.
Yeah. Well, maybe they're not talking about this because they're specifically talking about the inner core versus the outer core motion, right?
Which the mantle.
I thought it was okay. All right.
Yeah, it's the inner core versus the rest of the Earth. The outer core is left out because it's liquid.
Right.
We'll dump back on this topic.
Yeah.
Maybe next week we'll come back and we'll talk about the length of day and see if there's any cycles. But in the meantime, rewatch tonight About the Aliens on Magnetic Reversal News at 8 p.m.
Mountain Time on YouTube.
Great show.